All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. I'll be doing my preview and prediction for the Bahamas Bowl. 10.5-point spread in favor of UAB, December 16th on Friday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. Location of this one is Nassau, Bahamas, Thomas Robinson Stadium. This is the first meeting ever between these two schools. Look at the UAB Offense. Brett Gabbert, he's entered the transfer portal. Only played in 4 games this year. Avon Smith, he's been the quarterback. 48% completion percentage, 1,137 yards, 9 touchdowns, 5 picks. Pretty underwhelming as a starter for the Red Hawks, even though he has unleashed some pretty impressive speed. Almost 5 yards per rushing attempt, 503 yards, 6 touchdowns, and that's certainly been a big reason why he's probably remained the starting quarterback despite, such a lackluster effort as a passer. He does have a nice weapon, though, in Mac Hippenhammer. This guy has been around a long time. He's got 52 grabs, 726 yards, 8 touchdowns, far and away the team leader in all those categories for this Red Hawk offense at pass catcher. Miles Marshall, the Indiana transfer, though, right behind him, 23 grabs, 377 yards. He's a good jump ball guy at 6'4", 205 pounds. That's, pretty much it in terms of weapons, though. Keon Muzzy, respectable running back, 455 yards, 2 touchdowns. This is an offense that has, struggled a good bit for, the entirety of this season, I would say. Just about 20 points per game. They don't really have much of an identity. Only 308 yards per contest, both under 170 throwing and running per game. So Miami will have a lot of work to do going into the offseason. The offensive line's also allowed 34 sacks. So this is an offense that's really just, up against the wall, really. They've not performed very well. Gabbert being out obviously doesn't help. He was kind of he was the best player on this team. Him and Hippenhammer, nice little 1-2 punch there. Early on in the year, they had 3 straight games of 200-plus rushing. After that, 4 straight of 100 yards or less. And then, they haven't really done much since then. They had 29 points against IU, 18 against Ball State. This is a team that struggles to score, struggles to find yards. They had, a stretch of back-to-back games in October. They had 13 points and then 10 points. So this is just not a great offense one bit. They've been really stonewalled many times. They've not been any better going on the road either. So this is an offense I think it's really going to struggle in this game. Trying to get something going on the ground, maybe find some big plays through the air. The Hippenhammer is going to be their best opportunity, but under 19.5 points per contest on the road, and the yardage total is about 275 on the road per game. So this is an offense that's really struggled through the year, and I expect them to continue to struggle here. Looking at the UAB offense, 31 points per contest for them. This is all about the running game. This is an offensive line that's really leading the way for this football team, full of seniors. They're leading the surge up front. Dwayne McBride, 1,713 yards, 19 touchdowns, 155 yards per game. Leads the nation in rushing yards, right up there in touchdowns as well. This is a guy that's really tucking over this lead running back role, and he's just thrived with it. Spencer Brown, of course, he was previously here, and he was great in the backfield just many years ago. McBride, his freshman year was in 2020, and he looked good then, and he looked good, the last year and now here. He's been highly productive since he took over this lead back role. Jermaine Brown right behind him, 832 yards on 6 touchdowns on 142 attempts. 5.8 yards per attempt for Jermaine Brown, 6 yards per carry for this football team, 244 yards per contest on the ground. UAB, they just have a phenomenal running game. And then Dylan Hopkins does a pretty solid job as a game manager, only 19 attempts per contest for him, 9 touchdowns, 3 picks, 171 yards per contest. He really protects the football. He doesn't make too many bad decisions. Trey Strasfer, big-time playmaker, 21 yards per reception, team-high 740 yards and 35 touchdowns. And that, that was his MO coming into the year. He had 26 yards per reception a season ago, comes into this season, makes the most out of his opportunities. Only about 3 grabs a game, but he goes for 67 yards per contest. Tejon Palmer, right behind him, 461 on 27 grabs. T.J. Jones, Mario Rudolph, those are some other guys to get, grab or 2 per contest. But again, it's really about this running game. UAB, they love to run the football, and they do it very well. Guys like Brady Wilson have been good. Will Reichard, this is an offensive line that I think is really one of the more underrated ones in college football. Their abilities this year, with how powerful they've been at run blocking, certainly one of the better units in all of CFB. Look at the Miami of Ohio defense. This is a unit that's, pretty solid. They got some good individual players like Matthew Solopek at linebackers, 109 tackles, 7.5 tackles for loss. They also have Ryan McWood, 121 tackles for him. Michael Dow at corner, he's been phenomenal for them, 90 tackles, 5 pass breakups. They got some good individual players But this is a defense that they've certainly had their issues as well, especially through the air. 236 passing yards per game allowed, which is good that their strength is probably defending the run against this great rushing attack offense. But the last 3 games they really struggled. Gave up 194 plus yards in the last 3 contests on the ground. They've certainly had their issues, I would say. And this is not a very productive defensive line. I figured this would be a much better part of their football team. Only 55 tackles for loss. Brian Ugwu, 10.5 of those. Corey Suttle has 6 of them. And that's about it. Those are 2 up front, other little guys that do everything. Caden Woolard as well. He's got 3 sacks, 26 on the year for Miami of Ohio. That's not, a terrible mark, but for the most part, it's not great. John Saunders in the back end got 10 pass breakups for him. Sound defense, I would say, top to bottom, but this is a unit that, again, they've really struggled against the run as of late. Now they're coming into this game against one of the top rushing attacks in all of America. And, I'm just not sure if they have the size that can match up with him. Suttle's 261 pounds. Ugwu, a little smaller at 246. The best lineman they have, not loaded with size, which is not great against this UAB offensive front. So, top to bottom, I think this is a pretty sound unit. But coming into this game, 170-plus rushing allowed in 5 of the last 6 contests. I think the one where they didn't hit that mark was against Akron, not a very good football team. So, sound defense, but I do think they're pretty outmatched coming into this one. Look at the UAB defense. This is a unit certainly taken some steps back. Noah Wilder, still great, 100 tackles for him at his linebacker position. Only 21 sacks for UAB. It's one of the nation's worst marks. They don't have much of a pass rush one bit. Drew Chazama and Fish McWilliams, 2 really good defensive linemen. I do think that they do a pretty good job of getting penetration against the run. Isaiah Forte as well. Some really good size. They got a handful of 300-pounders there on the interior for UAB. And then this is a secondary as well. It's got some really good playmakers. You look at guys like Devontrick Beadham, 10 pass breakups this year. Grayson Cash, he's been great in coverage, 48 tackles for him. They've also allowed 200-plus rushing in 5 games this year. So their defense has been far from perfect. It's certainly taken some steps back. But kind of like Miami of Ohio, they have some good individual players. Mac McWilliams, he's been out for a while, but he was having himself a phenomenal year, especially in coverage before he got hurt. I'm not sure what his status is. Probably won't play in this game. It's a couple weeks away. But still, I don't expect to see him on the field much. Starling Thomas, though, a guy that's really stepped up at corner. This is a secondary I think is covered very well this season, despite giving up the yards they give up, which is about 198 per contest, which is not bad by any means, I don't think. 14 touchdowns, 10 picks allowed. That's really good. 57.3% opponent completion percentage. That's also a really impressive mark. Kind of inflated against UTSA and LSU as well. So if you take those out of the equation, it's a lot less number than that. They're able to get teed off on against LSU and UTSA. Very good at holding them to only 285 yards, though. They were able to stay in that game, lost 44-38. That was the midst of a 3-game losing streak for them. This offense certainly went quiet at times because the games they lost there, they had 17 points and then 17. And this defense, they were able to step up when the offense was struggling a good bit. They did lose the games, but they were able to hold these other offenses in check when your own unit is not playing good. It's certainly impressive because this unit, I think, has certainly underachieved compared to what I expected them in the early season. But, a lot of veterans here. Again, the pass rush is not that great. But they do have some good size on the D-line, some really good ball players in the secondary, and a phenomenal player, Noah Wilder, at linebacker. Looking at the final thoughts on the prediction on the Bahamas Bowl, the keys to the game, Ohio, I think they're going to have to load up to slow down a strong running game. And even if they do, I'm not sure how successful they will be at doing that. I think UAB, don't get, burned by Smith's running ability. And they also got to protect the ball. Miami of Ohio, this offense is just really not good. I don't see how they're able to win 6 games with this offense. Really resilient effort by this football team. Avion Smith, though, 500-plus rushing yards again for him. He's kind of the heart and soul of this football team, despite him also not playing too well, especially as a passer. So I think for Miami of Ohio, they can start to run the ball, pretty well. 142 yards per game is not a horrible mark. So if they can find some daylight on the ground, maybe open up the door for some play action, that's going to be a big opportunity for them. But I think they're going to have to hog the ball. But I think what's going to end up happening is UAB is going to hog the ball. They're going to spark some big plays on the ground. I think they're going to win this one pretty soundly, 35-17. And I think they will protect the ball, and they're not going to give the Red Hawks any extra opportunity. So this should be a great game to open up bowl season. Anything can happen, whenever Bowl Mania gets underway. In this game last year, I believe Middle Tennessee was also a double-figure underdog, and they ended up winning outright by double figures themselves. So certainly could see a big upset in this one. I think UAB, they got this one in the bag. They beat BYU themselves in a bowl game last year. So open things up. Bahamas Bowl should be a good one. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.